We are live. Thank you to everybody that's tapped in. Today is Sunday, October 23rd, and you are listening to the He Nuh Show on WINN Media 98.9. We're live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, and on the Instagram channels. And as usual, we try to bring you exciting new guests. We try to have the conversations on these public forums to raise awareness and to shine light. And this week is no different. We have in studios with us somebody that I've known for a very, very long time, even if it was peripherally, as she was just telling me. A lawyer, a politician, a mother, an advocate, I would say, and somebody that has crafted her own life, has decided to shape her own narrative. We have in studios with us Miss Natasha Gray Brooks. Miss Brooks, how are you today, ma'am?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all those listening. I am doing very well. A bit sad that Sunday is almost ending, but that's how it goes sometimes. Monday's just there waiting for us. But I am happy to be here, and I hope that I can bring even an ounce of excitement as your previous guest.
Okay, so I mean, that sounds like you've been tapped into the show. That's good. We like hearing that. But I mean, when we had the initial dialogue, one of the things that made me think about our discussion today was I saw you on the panel for this Kanaipa Youth Forum, I think it was.
Yes.
Right, for this Kanaipa Youth Forum. And your story was very inspiring. So I felt like it would be interesting for us to have a discussion about self-determination and shaping one's life. So when you as an individual think about some of your earliest experiences, what do you think was the main factor in shaping that self-determination? What made you feel like you could achieve the things that you've achieved so far?
Motherhood, I would say motherhood. I became a mother at a very early age. I finished high school at the age of 15. I went straight into the work world because I felt that I was a big woman. Little did I know I was not big. I only was a little big in size, but not really a big woman. But I became pregnant at the age of 16. And at that point, I knew nothing about being a mother. I know nothing about real responsibility. Even though I had, what I wanted from my life in my mind was not molded in the proper way at that point in time. But I decided, well, regardless of the setback, and I looked at it as a setback at that point in time, but I don't know.
Right.
And I said, I am going to push on. I always wanted to do something exciting in my life. When I was younger, I wanted to be a nurse. And surprisingly, interestingly, the last person that I saw, which made me not want to be a nurse, was your mother.
Oh, really?
I realized that I could not really stand and see people not feeling well.
Right.
I remember walking out of the hospital room, and I knew that I honestly did not want to be a nurse, even though I love people. And then I realized I think I like to talk. I say so sometimes, but sometimes I know. But I realized that is one of my strong points. And so I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer. But because I got pregnant at an early age, I could not at that point in time. I had to look after my son. I also had to find more ways of trying to deal with the challenge. Of course, with motherhood comes its own share of responsibility. Whilst I got pregnant, at that point I was only working for $110 a week.
Wow.
And I had no idea how I was going to be able to make that stretch. Of course, he had his father, but $110 a week, even back then, because he was born in 1998, was not a lot of money. But
tight.
I think with the grace of God, a strong family support system. Today he's 24 years old. I have not really had any problems apart from boys just being boys, want to play video games and don't clean their room. I honestly didn't have any problems.
But I mean, and just from my experience and as a young person, I speak to a lot of young ladies at this stage, and what I found is that is essentially a major hurdle to, someone deciding what their life trajectory is going to be, especially in the feminine context. So when women get pregnant, especially young girls, that's, like you said, a major responsibility,
Yes.
and it has the
Potential
to derail your life.
Yeah, it does.
And I see that all the time. Why do you feel like it didn't derail your life?
I'm a determined person. Even if I have a particular goal in mind and I fail or I do not get through in the first instance, that does not deter me. It makes me actually want it more. Mm-hmm. And so I decided I'm going to have to defer me having to go and study. I continued to do my A-levels at the University of the West Indies. There was a distance learning program. I also entered into that. And I said, let me try and work some more, gather some income, because it's not just me now. I have my son, and find ways and means to be able to pursue my studies. When I left St. Kitts, he was 8 years old. At that point, I thought I was in a position to leave him with someone, although that was a very hard thing for me to do.
Right, that's a big sacrifice.
Very, very big a hard thing for me to do, because when I traveled with him.
Right.
So I don't think I've ever spent a day away from him until I left to go to study. Even the application process was a challenge, because, as I said, I didn't go to CFBC. I got my O-levels, went straight into work. When I was doing one of the A-levels, I was actually pregnant. And so that again comes with its shares of, the effects that it could have on your body, sleepy, tired. And I recall I was actually nodding in one of the exams.
So it was a disruption.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I had to retake that. But I carried on. I ensured that my focus remained the same. I made my applications to University of the West Indies. That was my first choice. To date, I do not have my original certificates because I don't know what UB did with them. I called, I emailed, I did a number of things to try and find out what was happening. But after I realized that was the first setback, I also got information that you can go to the Ministry of Education and get an actual letter to say that you passed these subjects. So I got that. I reapplied the next year. No answer. I got advice then to do the UB Distance Learning program, which was a foundation course in law. Did that. Tried again. No answer. Then I spoke to a lawyer who told me about this college in London, Holborn College, where you have the options to choose a university. At that point, it was University of London, University of Wales, and University of Huddersfield. To be honest, I didn't know the difference. I just chose University of Huddersfield, and it was the first step of making my application to school. There was a fee that you had to pay.
Right.
I can recall it amounted to 14,000 EC.
At that time?
Yes. And I didn't have the money. A friend of mine, she gave me some money. She said she is investing in my child's future. And by doing that, she thinks that it will help me to basically go where I want to go. Yes, wow. I have some real friends. And I know sometimes I see people make certain comments and say certain things about people, but I know the real ones. And so I used that to apply for a loan to get the $14,000 to be able to start that process. And then you had to do like a little mini exam. So I did that, and then I got the approval.
So like an entrance exam?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the next thing was the tuition fee. Didn't born with a gold spoon in my mouth, or no spoon at all. The application process for Development Bank, it wasn't a hard application process. The challenge was finding sureties. Because...
So like guarantors?
Yes.
Okay.
Some persons, for one reason or the other, would have had persons stand up for them for loans and never came back, never paid, and people were a bit skeptical in terms of doing these things. And I'm thankful that I was able to find two persons who I always look up to today, who have always tried to make sure they find some sort of way to support me in my ventures. And I was successful with the loan application, but that was only enough for the tuition. The bank also wanted to know, well, you know, what about accommodation and that type of thing. So I had to get someone to write a letter to say that basically they would support me
while you're outside.
Whilst I'm outside. So after that was completed, I knew, hey, I'm on my way to London. I've never been to London before. I think I just like heard about persons who were in London. I didn't really have any connection with anyone in London or any part of the UK. And I remember leaving St. Kitts on the 21st of September, 2007. That was the hardest thing for me at that point, because it broke my heart knowing that I couldn't take my son with me.
You had to leave him behind.
Yes. But I had a goal, I had a mission, and I thought that that goal would help to improve his lifestyle and to be able to help him to accomplish some of the things that I was unable to do as a child and give him a better life. And I knew that I had to do it.
So that was that the main driving force behind all of the ambitions that you had? The fact that you had this baby at such a young age, and you felt like you needed to shape your life in order to be able to provide for him? Was that the main driving force?
It was. I think that more or less propelled me in everything I do. There might have been, other, just being able to accomplish certain things for yourself. Even though it was a joy for me to achieve certain things, knowing that I would be able to provide better for him, that was that was something that just had me, kind of bubbly. I don't know how to explain it, but it just made me want to continue. It made me want to push on, regardless of the hurdles. I just remembered my son.
Where did that sense of responsibility come from, though? Because I see a lot of times, young persons, so it might be a young guy, and young guys are often very, very distant in terms of parenting. Or you have some young mothers who they might have a supportive background. They might have a mother who is the grandmother at this stage, who they know will provide the necessary assistance, and they just pass off the child and go to do the parties and go to do all. What made you different? What made you think that wasn't the direction you wanted to go in?
I want to add to that question because I want to ask you personally, would you consider yourself at 16 having a baby responsible, first of all? Because there's a dance, there's a learning curve, right?
Yeah, it was a very big learning curve. I love my mother. I love her dearly. I remember when I told her I was pregnant. So I said, it's a mistake. She said, mistake? I don't care if it's meat steak or beef steak. Yeah, look after the child. Even though I know she said it because she didn't expect her 16-year-old to be pregnant or to get pregnant.
Right.
I think she always wanted the best for me. in terms of education and everything like that. She said it to, I think, give me that sense of responsibility. And so even before I left to go to study, that stood out for me. I used to go liming with my friends. No, I'm not different than any teenager at that point in time, but I had to balance. So you go down 4th Street, there is Shani with this baby in the pram. Go Netball City, there is Shani with the baby in the pram. In fact, there was a netball team by the name of Sparks, and he was like the mascot for Sparks. I used to find the blue and red clothes for him just to match the uniform, because I felt that even though I wanted to still live my life, he should not be disadvantaged.
Okay.
And I should not just pass him on to anyone. I mean, I had my times where I used to go to a dance or a fete or whatever, but I did that when he's asleep. I make sure that there was somebody responsible looking out for him. I wouldn't go and say, oh, I carry him by somebody on Wednesday and don't go back for him 2 weeks. I know that happens.
Yeah.
I know that happens, and it's sad. I mean, everybody have their own share of experiences, their reasons. I'm not going to try and bash anyone, but children must be paramount. And so I think that is why I had that kind of, I learned I had to get responsible. Even if I wasn't, I don't think I was really bad in terms of being responsible, because even before I got pregnant, I had little groups that I was a part of that taught me how to be responsible. Girls Guide, Girls Brigade, Brownies. And so I had the necessary knowledge, but being pregnant at 16, becoming a mother at 16, that's a whole different ball game. But I was up for it.
See, I want to ask a question about that as well, because outside of proving it to yourself, right? At 16, you had a child, you realize you have this child now, and people gonna talk.
Yeah.
So at some point, before you reach to the point of proving it to yourself that you want to accomplish and could accomplish all these things, right? Did you, at a point, had like a chip on your shoulder to prove to people as well? That you could accomplish your dreams, regardless to what what hardship you went through?
I don't think I was trying to prove anything to people. I just wanted to be able to satisfy myself.
At 16, that's what you was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up fast. I grew up fast, and I always tell people, sometimes even like the politics side of it. Right. I was never part of the young Pamites. I grew up fast. Yeah. Young Pamites at 16, you should be in young Pamites, not with the big people. But I was not forced, but I had to be that responsible person. I had to be a mother to my child. I had to be someone that he could look up to, not parading the town and want to be in everything. I had to craft my life so that I can craft his.
Does that come from like your mom?
Partly, yes. She is an independent person. She grew up with her mother, who is my grandmother. My grandmother was a very hard worker, and she always taught her children about being responsible and working for what they want, ensuring that they don't follow bad company. Mm-hmm. And so, having been brought up in that type of extended family setting, we were poor, we had humble beginnings, but she taught us how to do things the right way. And even though we were not a rich family, she made sure that her children and her grandchildren, by extension, were well cared for. And so, having seen that, I think that I had a responsibility. I owed it to my son
Yeah.
to make sure that I do that for him.
Yeah, I think those examples were very formative because I can relate to that experience and that upbringing that you speak to. I remember being involved in those same youth groups. So when we were coming up in the late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s even, there were a lot more youth groups. So you spoke about maybe the Girls Guides or the Brownies, or I was involved in Boy Scouts and AYPA. A lot of those groups don't exist now. So I feel like the new generation,
They're missing out.
they're missing out. And they are now being informed by social media. Globalization is the new narrative.
You made me feel bad there because my daughter loves Cocomelon. Okay, I need to get in Girl Brigade by tomorrow. She can't have that as
But is there Girls Brigade? Do you feel like we need those?
I think
groups back?
there's still some of those groups. I go to Methodist Church. There is a Girl Brigade and a Boys Brigade. It's not as active as it once was.
Right.
I think we see them on Independence Day. We see them from different parts of the country
Yeah,
throughout.
yeah.
So they're still there. I don't know if they just show up on Independence Day or what they. Because I remember we used to have some founders there. I remember going to school in my uniform and
yeah.
that kind of thing. So I don't know if that happens still. But I guess people like me and you, maybe we need to help to bring back some of those things. Even if it's not ourselves, maybe, at least encourage people to join a group if there is something that is causing a group to be dysfunctional or just, dormant. We need to, at least, to save our country, to save our communities, do a little bit.
I want to go back to that just a little bit more, right? In terms of the, 16, your mom and everything. Was your dad in the picture?
He was at a point. He left St. Kitts in about he left St. Kitts the year before my son was born. I think, and I am only guessing, because my dad and my mom were not together at some point. He was still in my life in terms of doing the father figure, but not as much as I would have liked. We now have a bond, a stronger one, that is, which I think it dwindled during my high school years. He was always a supportive dad, but he was a very firm dad. I remember one time me and my friends had to run from him because and I think maybe it's my fault. So let me take responsibility. I have to take responsibility. High schoolers, you don't want to go straight home. You want to go down 4th Street. If you ain't go down 4th Street, you ain't going to school. And so there was a store just where Byron and Byron Law Firm is. That was Daldria Billinghurst. He had a store there just by the ice cream parlor, and you turn through there.
Right.
And I saw his bus coming up 4th Street, and me and my friends, we run. Yes, I could have run, not like Kim Collins, but like Natasha Gray. And so I had to run because if he sees them, he know that I am somewhere around. So they had to run with me, and we had to hide because they know he gonna run me off the street because he don't want me to go along the wrong path. And so, yeah. So he was there. He was there to make sure that I do the right thing, even though I thought it was not the right thing. So, in hindsight, yes, maybe I might not have gotten pregnant at 16. I don't know. But he was just firm. So maybe he's meeting like the firm.
But do you now see value in
Yes, I do.
the lessons that he tried to impart?
Yes, I do. Because I don't, even though at 24, I would call my son, a certain time, my baby. at least, call and say, you're here, so at least I know. Still thinking that he's not, still thinking that he's a underage child. For me, even though I now have my daughter, he's still my baby. I want to know where he is. I want to know who he's spending time with. Not that I'm going to try and dictate his life, but I mean, I guess it's the motherly instinct. Just making sure that he's all right.
I mean, the reason I asked about both mother and father, and you mentioned the girls' brigade and everything, right? Is because some young people get kids as well.
Yeah.
And they don't really have necessary tools because
there's only one parent.
There may be only one parent, and that one parent might not even got the tools as well. So they really don't have anything. They didn't go into any groups to learn anything. So I asked that question just because that's to show the importance of having tools. Not just two parents, having tools. Because I remember at a point in time, in my own personal life, my dad revealed to me that, he wanted to give up on me and speaking to me. And his father, he went and spoke to his father about it, and his father said, that's a thinking child. Just keep speaking to him, because eventually when he get older, he gonna reach moments where he gonna need the tools. And it's better for him to have the tools than not to have them. So keep speaking, don't give up, right? And sometimes as parents, a lot of us they give up and stop speaking, especially if the child is giving us some resistance.
Push back,
So it's important that we establish, always pushing on the tools, giving the tools, making sure they have the tools ready.
Because parenting is difficult.
It is. I mean, as I said, I know persons who have children the same age as me. They have issues with the children smoking, maybe getting involved in criminal activity, just these girls up and down on the streets. And so they have to be looking for them 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. The child ain't reach home from last night.
That's crazy.
My gosh.
I
can't even imagine going through that. I can't even imagine going through that. I mean, I don't think I was a problem child. I had a few moments where I went clubbing. My mother didn't know, and she knows now if she's listening. I remember going Lion's Den.
Mangoes.
Yeah. What the one over Canada, the name boy. I can't remember right now offhand. I am so old boy. And I take off my shoes when I going down the stairs because they're gonna make noise. And then I turn the door, the key. And I like trying to pretend that I can't hear the key. So I know if I can't hear the key, she can't hear the key. But maybe even know where I get that kind of logic from. But so the key, take your shoes, go back upstairs, and go to sleep. Nothing ever happened. Okay, that was my bad moment.
So I mean, after you came back home, how old was your son at that point?
He was 12 or 13. Oh my gosh, he was 13.
And you joined the legal practice immediately?
I had a connection with Chesley Hamilton. On 2 summers when I was back in St. Kitts, I worked with him. And then when I came back, I said, well, I'm back. He said, okay, see you tomorrow. I mean, the only job that I've ever done an interview for was when I was in England for McDonald's. I've never done an interview. When I finished high school, I was already working part-time on Saturdays with Richard Keynes, and I just basically transitioned. Likewise, I was already working on summers with Chesley, and so I transitioned when I came back.
Where did that come from, though? The working on summers and on weekends and
just wanting to have my own money. I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking as a child when you say you would like to have something
and you can't.
You can't get it.
Yeah, because your parents can't afford it.
Yeah, and so I decided I need to be able to work to, you know, to certain things that I would like. And maybe that is why I didn't go sixth form, because I just wanted to work.
To work. You know, so that's something I've been thinking about recently, the utility that is embedded in early responsibility. Because I had jobs, summer jobs, you know, when Athletes Foot first came around, and I worked on the golf course when I was a kid, like fourth farm, third farm, probably up to fifth farm. I had jobs. And what that did for me is it taught me the value of money.
Yep.
It taught me responsibility, because you have to be at a particular place at a particular time.
Yes.
And there's a dedication that you learn from being responsible for a certain level of output, right? Now, oftentimes as parents, especially if we make it to a certain social economic level, so let's say we're middle class and your kids don't necessarily have to work.
Yeah.
You don't allow them to. Do you feel like you're doing your child a disservice if you can afford to have them stay home and play video games all summer? Do you feel like you're doing your child a disservice if you let them stay home, or do you think children should be made to take summer jobs?
I think they ought to, especially not regardless of the social status of their parents. It helps them to learn responsibility. It helps them to become disciplined, and to be able to, you know, have certain character traits. Because I find, and I don't know what is the main reason now, I find some persons within their 20s, maybe up to 30, they, in terms of work ethic,
Yeah, it's not there.
I don't know. I don't know what was the cause. I don't know. I don't think it's just based on the fact that they didn't have a summer job. But I think if you start from early, it helps you to become more responsible. It helps you to appreciate things more. It helps you to respect your coworkers, your employers. I mean, to actually feel that you are obliged to do certain things, and have a little work ethics. I mean, people nowadays, and it's not just in the private practice, it's in government.
Yeah.
When I used to work by Richard Keynes, government headquarters was just across the road. I would see people going across the road, hustling with their children, I guess put down their bag, drop the child to school, and then come back, and then they got a breakfast in their hand. But you were supposed to be working for 8 o'clock. So, like, what happened to carrying the child to school to reach to work for 8? And they do it, like, every single day. It's like clockwork.
Yeah, I think that in our society now, in this modern time right now, I think that we kind of done away with a lot of consequences.
Yeah.
Because even in school, like, I remember when you were in past your subjects, you used to get a lash for each subject you fail. So you guys, so you always, every year you got to kind of be on point out as you get lashes from primary school right up to high school.
Yeah.
But no, they don't really do that because, you know, somebody gonna hit my child.
Exactly. It's a big war.
It's a big war. Like, I remember, like, when things happen at school, like my mother, and I call my mom, I could be in the right, but she sent me back up to school to take my lashes.
Oh, yeah, man.
Right? But that's what's saying, like, no more consequences. So they don't understand, like, you know, it's consequences to showing up late, and until they go to a place like a big country and they realize, why is it I got to show up on time and work properly.
I remember when I was in England, snow, public transport closed down, and I had to make it to work. So I had to pay a taxi from where I was to be able to go to work. And then basically the pay that I'm getting for that day, taxi fare.
But you want to retain the job.
Yeah,
so
because I have my child back in St. Kitts. I have to work. I have to pay my rent. So I had a level of responsibility whilst I was there that some persons just, I think they needed even a little ounce of that, because I used to see people coming into the class, they mark their name and they're gone. That's it. They ain't coming back to class. I started a class with, I think it was 100 and something persons, because the whole auditorium was full.
Right, when you started.
Yeah.
And by the end of
the 3-year term, it was about 30 something of us graduate.
Yeah. How important it is for you to share your stories like with your children? Because sometimes a lot of the elders, like our parents, don't really share their stories, so you don't really learn the lessons, right?
It's very important because it helps them to recognize how they got or how you got from point A to point B, and how they were able to basically enjoy the fruits of point B, and now they could even reach point C,
Right.
and put themselves in a position to shape the lives of their children and be able to pass on that sense of responsibility and that sense of
Pride.
Yeah. It's because I think you enjoy something more when you work hard for it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When you work hard for it. I don't like anybody to just hand me anything. I always believe in working hard because
You value your independence.
Yes.
You value independence. And I see now that's a big thing that I've seen. A lot of younger persons, they don't seem to place that premium on independence.
No.
They're comfortable staying with their mother until they're 30. I remember when we were growing up, you wanted to get to a certain age and get a job because you wanted your own place.
Yeah, you wanted your own room.
You wanted your own
Yes, you gone
space.
far. You wanted your own room. It's like 14 of us were living on Pan Road. Just where my office is. That's where my family house next door there. 14 of us. You fold up I think it was a sponge. You fold it up, you chuck it in this side by the chair. Nighttime you roll it out. Morning you wake up with 2 sponges in your hair, you put them out.
But you know, sorry, go ahead.
No, this is just me now into my law career. I see a number of my colleagues calling down fathers who want to spend time with their children. But because their living arrangements are not such that the child would have their own room,
Right.
oh, that child can't get overnight access with his father. It hurts me.
That's crazy.
It hurts me because, as I said, it was 14 of us.
That's crazy.
14 of us. It's 4 bedrooms, 14 of us at one point. And I don't think, it turned out too bad.
Do you think, because this is something that I think about a lot, do you think we are getting to a place where we're maybe a little bit too conscious or a little bit too woke?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I see that all the time. I see people making those types of arguments. Okay, it's not okay for you to have 5 children and your 5 children in the same room. Why not?
That happens. Poor people, that's the life of an average person.
But it creates stronger bonds.
Yep.
Right? So now, because we are now focused on the individual, if we're looking at the picture that you painted, being in that big extended family, right? I would assume that you had incredible bonds with those persons because you were so close. You grew up so close that you had amazing relationships, and you knew them intimately. So it allowed you as a person to even set personal boundaries.
Yeah.
Because you're so much interacting with persons that you have to set up boundaries to find your own space.
Exactly.
Now, when you grow up as an individual, I feel like that's where things like selfishness and greed come from.
Yeah.
Because we are
All to ourselves.
Right, it's all about self. So I think we're getting to a place in the society especially where we're a little bit too woke.
Yeah.
Entitled to.
Yeah. Persons have this sense of entitlement, and they feel that they can say any and everything if they don't get what they want.
Right.
And it's not getting what you want because you really work hard for it, you deserved it. But you just feel that you want this bottle of water and I should say here.
Yeah, it's owed to you.
But you're not going to say, well, okay, I really think that I should maybe organize in here, and then I realize, okay, I'm thirsty, so let me have a drink because I deserve to have a drink because I've done something to be able to have a drink of water.
Yeah, but that's like a reward system, that people need to put in place. Like, you have to work. I remember I had some co-workers there, so I always laugh at me, so, because I would take lunch at like 4 in the afternoon. And like midday would come, one would come and say, you're not gonna have lunches. I know I don't deserve it yet. They're like, what do you mean by that? You mean you don't deserve it? You deserve your lunches. I know I didn't work hard enough yet. Because I know I goofed off maybe like the first hour, right? So I got to kind of build back up that.
You put back in that time.
Yeah.
Put back in that time. But so, having built your own career, and from the outside looking in, someone would feel like, okay, Miss Gray is comfortable now. She has her legal practice. You can relax. You can now become one of the elites. What made you want to live a life of public service and get into politics?
My grandmother. I saw her always wanting to help people. I saw her always wanting to take in somebody. We did not know taking somebody. In fact, she loved politics as well too, and she used to always help the candidate at the time.
Campaigning.
Yeah. I used to see her doing things with children's Christmas parties and cooking food, and I think seeing the joy or the smile that she had on her face, being able to help somebody, that inspired me.
So she was big on community service.
Yes, that inspired me. And so from a very early age, she used to tag me along with her. And so I got to learn the ropes. I got to understand and appreciate what it takes to be able to help somebody. Even though she was not the candidate, she was part of the process that was able to change lives. And I wanted to do that in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's why I'm a lawyer, because apart from like talk, there are certain things you can do in this profession to be able to help others. It's not always all about money.
Right.
And so I think it's just a part of me, having grown up in that type of environment. I don't see how I could move away from it. I honestly don't see. Even if I am never elected, I don't see how I can move away from it. I really want to see people genuinely happy. I really want to be able to help where I can. And even if I can't, guide persons in the right direction so that they can be able to uplift themselves and bring a better and stronger community. As you said, our community, country is not going the way that it ought to. I think there is a form of selfishness just lurking around in the air. We need to find some way to kind of just help that disappear.
But I mean, okay, so to that point, because in hearing you talking about, genuinely wanting to help people, I feel like a lot of persons that enter political life enter with those same high ideals. And just from my experience, and even in my corporate life, I see things that persons identify as opportunities. They shouldn't necessarily be opportunities, but they identify them as opportunities, and they take. They take and they take and they take, and it becomes a habit. And persons who had all these high ideals, now they compromise their morals. And they start to do things because the opportunity is there, or they've created an opportunity for themselves to siphon some money or misappropriate some funds. What do you think keeps persons grounded that have those same ideals? What would it take to keep a person grounded maybe 5, 10, 15 years into their political career when all of these shiny things are popping up?
Keep your focus on the people. If that remains your focus, all those other distractions, they would go away. And I think that is where some of our politicians fall down, because it starts to slide away from the people. It's now about Mr. X or Mrs. X. And so once it remains about Mr. X and Mrs. X, it's about how Mr. X can now obtain this and obtain that. But it's the same people that you placed you there, you're going to go back to in 5 years, but you forgot about them. And if you continue to focus on people, regardless of your politics, regardless of the fact that you are elected, keep your focus on the people, so that even when you demit office, you will still be seen as someone who is for the people.
Right.
Because you have tried. And I my campaign, in my mind, it was reflective of who I am. It's not just because, I want to be elected, so I do this, I do that, I do this. It's just a genuineness to always want to see people happy. Because I knew some of the challenges that I had. I have always heard of stories, people saying, I only see he till election time, I see him again. I never wanted that, and I still don't want it to be my legacy, because I want to be able to let people know I wasn't doing anything because I want to be elected. I just want to see people happy. It is something that makes me feel so satisfied, accomplished, knowing that you can do something to uplift the life of somebody else. I was able to benefit from programs that help people. The school books program.
Right.
Self, yes, sorry. I was able to benefit from that. And it hurts me when I hear parents saying that they can't afford books, or a child has to basically have his education affected because he doesn't have the necessary tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you can have both parents in your house, but you don't have the tools.
Still, yeah.
So, the politicians, persons in the community, it behoves us to keep people centered, have people right there, always reminding you that this is why I want to serve.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I want to serve. And once you have that goal and that commitment and that determination, all those other distractions, in my mind, all those other distractions and the fanfare and, all the show-off things.
I mean, it's simple. It's in the coat of arms, like country above self.
Yeah.
So that should be the hallmark, as you enter the political arena. But, people have different agendas, I guess, when they're going to power, or how they see power, because people have different perspectives about it. Because some people, they're all for the glitz and the glamour of it.
Mm-hmm. Even as a lawyer, I mean, the glitz and glamour, it doesn't bother me at all.
I think that's the like we always hear people say things like fake it till you make it. Some people they look the part, but they're not really the part. So sometimes you just find that people comfortable with that, looking like the part, but not really the part.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like to some extent, it's almost built into politics and the way that politics is set up, because you find an individual and this individual campaigns on a particular platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's an element of pageantry to it,
Yeah.
where you have to go on this platform, you make speeches, you show up at schools, you shake hands, you kiss babies, you do all these things, right? And on election day, you get to find out whether or not persons have identified you as the individual that they want to follow, if you are the leader that they've chosen. And once you've been chosen, I think in the St. Kitts Nevis context especially, I guess it exists everywhere else, but there's a form of hero worship, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I said this before, coming out of, the post-colonial era, and you remember this, when doctors and lawyers were like
the
elites. So they were seen as the upper echelon of society.
Mm-hmm.
They are infallible. They don't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing my grandmother almost worshiping politicians. There was a sense of reverence when she spoke about them. Now, if somebody isn't morally grounded, it's easy for them to get lost in that.
Easy, very easy, very easy. Because I mean, people see me and call me the boss. Shani's fine for me. I could kind of understand in persons wanting to be respectful and say Mrs. Square or Mrs. Square Books, but I am, in my mind, a simple person. I'm not about the fanfare and the glitz and glamour. I am not about likes and all that. I just want to help people.
So it's service.
That's just me. I'm not. Even certain things within my campaign that I ran, I was not comfortable with certain things, and I stuck to what I wanted to do, because at the end of it, I wanted to be able to relate to the people. It was not an ordinary election in my mind. That was my first time.
Right.
But I've been around election campaigns before, and it was nothing. Oh my gosh. People like Fridays.
Yeah.
I hated Fridays. Because Fridays was my consultation day. And
so you'd see constituents on that.
Yeah. And it's not that I hated it because I'm seeing constituents. It's because our electoral system has become all about money.
Yeah.
All about money. I don't know. I asked other politicians, like, is this how it is? I thought, because I'm a female, you as a male would feel a kind of way to ask me for money. You would feel a kind of way. No. I remember the Child Month March. I had my baby in the car seat. I was in the constituency office on Friday. And a gentleman came and asked me for $62,000 to buy a boat. So I said to him, where am I supposed to find $62,000 from? I said, I'm not working. I have a baby. That's my baby in the car seat there. I'm on maternity leave, actually.
Wow, that's crazy.
I really haven't worked for the year. I tried to put out my life story. I had COVID in January. I was hospitalized, and so I was on sick leave until February. I got a baby in March. I'm on maternity leave. He watched me in the face and said, okay, 40 will do. So I was like, this is what, and that was what made me realize, like, something has to change in St. Kitts. I don't know what the next election is going to look like, but oh my gosh.
Yeah, there are a lot of expectations. People have a lot. And to some extent, it is the fault of politicians. Yeah, because they have created that dynamic where they pay for votes. Yep. And it's, well, traditionally. So the tradition has been, over the last, I don't know how long, but, politicians don't necessarily press issues. It's not even about the issues and resolving real problems.
I feel like it's still deeper than just the politicians too, because it's our society where we even look at certain people in certain positions and we associate them with money and integrity. And like you might see somebody and like a doctor, like back in the day, you say a doctor and nothing they say could be wrong. Like everything is always right. They can't make a mistake type of thing, right? So you feel like they got the best in heart for you, Like they might come and, how we have, like you say, hero worship. And they also become almost like celebrities, and people think celebrity equals integrity. But, a lot of times some of these people are not the most, solid people.
No, but the point I was making, though, is there must have been a genesis for that, where persons began to feel emboldened to go and approach a politician and say, hey, I need $40,000. It had to be. It must be the case that there are persons that actually do get that $42,000 from somewhere, from some politician.
Yeah,
right?
so
but you've now set that precedent.
In essence, yeah, but I think that in some ways, right? There is a way that maybe a politician might be in a position to help somebody, right? And they help that person, and it goes down, the line, and people think that it's for everybody,
Yeah.
but they didn't realize that it's not for everybody. This was something that they could have managed,
Yeah.
and it might have came out their own pockets and say, maybe I could do this for you. Right? Or even tell them, go to this office and seek out these. Because sometimes you see, even in certain jobs, they won't tell you what programs are there for you. You have to go and ask, and then you might get like a scholarship, and the rest of the employees don't even know that that's there.
True.
Right?
I remember I saw this guy, and he was telling me about an injury he had, and he wanted to get some medical help and stuff. And I sent him to, I think the department is social services. But there's a program whereby I think you could get like 5,000 US if you have medical needs. He wasn't interested in that. I told him I'd help him fill out the form, and
He doesn't want
if
that.
I need to write a letter. It wasn't about that for him. It was about getting the raw cash from somebody, but not me, to be able to get that accomplished. But yeah, it's something that needs to be changed. I don't know when it will be changed. It will not deter me from wanting to be of service to the good people of constituency 1 and by extension the country. But I really think that there has to be some way of taking back our country, molding our people to be able to want to be independent, to be able to want to accomplish the next step for them, and then the next one after that. It's not all about, okay, I have finished high school, I'm a cashier so I tell her at the bank, and that's it. You have to always want to motivate people to just climb higher, and achieve more. I mean, I wanted to do a master's, just to say that I prefer to do something else. But I don't want to go back in school in a classroom type setting, but 2022 happened. Not anything that I had planned at all. I didn't plan to get COVID. I didn't plan for election.
So let me play devil's advocate, right? With this question, you say we have to take back over our country, right? You don't feel like that was done recently?
The government was changed. I don't think all those problems that exist have been, they disappeared over the past 2 months.
You don't think we on a path?
It's left to be seen. I think everybody wants to be an essential worker now.
Yeah.
Whether or not they fit the criteria. So, and again, it goes back to entitlement.
Right,
You feel that, you did certain things during the COVID, and I should get an honorarium too.
Yeah. Okay. So, we're approaching the end of the show. What are your plans for the next 5 years leading up to the next election?
I will continue to be who I am. I would, if I can do more, I would. I have a number of programs that I already have in place. I will continue those programs: soup kitchen, book club. I do back to school. I do Christmas programs. I'm actually preparing for the month of the elderly. I have a number of personal things to deal with, so I need to see how best I can have this week categorized. But I just want to continue to make a difference in people's life. It's not because I am not elected, I stop.
Right.
And then that would really show that I wasn't really in it for the people. Because my thing is, once you have that genuine desire to serve, you should be able to serve in and out of office. And so I will continue all that I have to do, wherever I can assist. I mean, I think 1 or 2 persons, when they saw me, became the... the name of the title.
The candidate?
No, since the government changed, the gender affairs. I'm this part of this program to helping young girls who, and they said, oh, she turned labor now. And it's not about turning labor. It is about helping people.
Right.
If I can help a teenage girl who is going along the wrong path, should I say, okay, they say my government, and so I'm not helping? Then I don't have that genuine desire to serve if that's the case.
Do you applaud that? I mean, it's not necessarily an olive branch, but in the context of the tribalism that exists within our local politics, it seems to be a step in a different direction, because usually you don't see candidates from other parties being acknowledged in that way or being invited to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, you don't really see it. I think it's Dr. Hanley and I have always had a good relationship, so much so that people felt that it would have been to my disadvantage. Again, I would not use the 2020 election as an election to base anything off of.
Right.
This was no ordinary election.
Right.
None at all. And
Agreed.
so I would not say that it was to my detriment because him and I get along.
Okay.
And I think persons look up to me in terms of being able to run a clean campaign, being able to, because I think he has characteristics that the country can benefit from, and likewise he thinks the same. So the country should not be at a disadvantage because I have something to offer, but the party that I support is not in government.
Okay. Well said.
Country above self.
Well said.
Definitely.
Well said. And on that note, we are at the end of the show. We've had
Right.
an amazing conversation with Shani, Miss Natasha Gray Brooks. And, you know, we appreciate you coming to the studios
It was
and
my pleasure to be
and
here.
sitting down with us. We got a better understanding of who you are as a person. And to everybody that's listening, thank you so much for tapping in. This has been the He Nuh Show on WINN Media 98.9, live streaming again on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Tune in next week, but have an amazing evening, everyone. Good night.